In the last few months, the TV show Severance has been topping the Apple TV viewing charts. The series follows employees of a fictional corporation called Lumen Industries. These employees have agreed to a medical procedure where their work consciousness, their work life, and their home consciousness, their home life, is severed. And so what happens is they show up to the office, and as soon as they walk through the doors, they don't remember their home life. They're only there at work. In fact, what it feels like from their perspective is that they never left, that they just are starting another day in the office. They don't remember the night's sleep that they had. They don't remember if they hung out with friends or if they did anything fun the night before. Their lives are completely separate. And the show depicts a kind of surreal, almost a dystopian version of The Office, right? It's this really eerie kind of show. And the star of the show experiences almost a constant hell, whether he's in his work consciousness or his home consciousness. When he's at work, he has no knowledge of going home the night before, no recollection. He just has work upon work upon work without rest. He's trapped in this hellish dystopia. And you would think that his consciousness at home would be great, that would be heavenly. It would be the opposite. No, but he struggles to sleep without the help of alcohol. He grieves the loss of his wife in his home life, and he volunteered for a reason to go through this severance program. He was trying to escape his home life for at least 8 hours a day because his home life wasn't restful. His home consciousness has no knowledge of any productivity, any purpose, any significance in his life, and so it feels mundane and meaningless. He lives 2 hells instead of 1, 2 miserable existences instead of 1. And I've wondered if this show has struck a chord with our culture because deep down inside, most of us are in a dysfunctional relationship with our work. I think that most of us are in a dysfunctional relationship with our work. Work occupies so much of our life, so much of our thinking, so much of our waking hours that we can't help, but that it has a tremendous effect on us. To the point where it doesn't just impact our time at work, our energy at work, our work life, but it also impacts our physical health, our mental health. It can even impact our very souls. Now, we've been looking at the book of Exodus for several months now, and we've come to this place now where we've slowed way down, right? And we're looking at the 10 Commandments one at a time. God has delivered his people from slavery in Egypt, and he's brought them to Mount Sinai where he's giving his people the law. And in the first commandment, we saw that God gave them his law, which was to honor him first and foremost, above all gods. They were not to have any other gods before him, and we likewise are not to have any other gods before him. In the second commandment, we were taught to honor God's image by not making any other images of him. The third commandment tells us to honor God with our words. And then today, we're going to learn how to honor him with our time. We're going to learn how to honor God with our time from Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. Go ahead and turn your Bibles if you've got them, Exodus chapter 20. Our text is verses 8 through 11, but I'm going to read from 1 to 17, as is our habit. And God spoke all these words, saying, I, Yahweh, your God, I am Yahweh, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the 3rd and the 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahweh, your God, in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. The word of our Lord. Let's talk about work and rest. Some philosophers have recently diagnosed Western societies with something that they're calling the achievement society. We are an achievement society because we as individuals have an achievement mentality. I think that this is particularly bad in the United States, where our value is in what we produce as individuals, as corporations. Each of us is a self-made man or woman. Our success is based on what we decide it is. It's a land of opportunity. Anybody can be anything they want. There's unlimited potential in America. And so if you're in a land of unlimited potential and unlimited possibilities, and you don't amount to much, that's on you. That's your fault. We are so afraid of failure because that means that we're bad. It means that we're not amounting. I must be bad if I fail at this thing. I must not be a good person if I'm not being successful. I'm not fulfilling my potential. Have you ever had a boss come down on you really hard for failing in some aspect of your job? How did that feel? Felt horrible, right? Is that because we're all overly sensitive snowflakes? Some of us are. Sometimes we are, but mostly it's because we wrap up our value in our success. And so if we fail, we must not be very valuable. We're not producing what we ought to produce. If I'm not achieving my potential, that's my fault. What am I worth if I'm not producing, if I'm not making myself great, if I'm not achieving, if I'm not hitting my quota? And so we get so defensive when somebody criticizes us or criticizes our work, because it has this moral quality assigned to it. And if we admit failure, we must be saying, I'm the worst. I'm just the worst if I failed. So it's hard to even admit that we fail. We are in an achievement society because work has come to define every part of our lives. And I don't just mean work as our vocation, our paycheck. I mean all that we do, all that we produce. Stay-at-home parents, you feel this, perhaps more acutely than anyone else. You leave your kid on screens for too long and you think, I'm a bad dad. Well, let's be real, dads. We never think that. That's a mom thing. Moms think that dads are bad for leaving kids on screens too long. And they're right. We snap at our kids and we think, I'm the worst parent that ever existed because I failed. We scroll through story after story of influencers on Instagram who somehow managed to get to the gym, get to their kids off to school on time, make money on social media, and look amazing doing it. And we think, I'm not that, so I'm failing. I must be bad. I can't make myself what they are. Even our vacations have to produce good selfies or good moments for Instagram. Do you see the problem here? Every aspect of our life has been invaded by this compulsion to achieve. That failure to produce is a failure as a person, we feel. It's no wonder that mental health is an epidemic in our nation because everyone feels like a constant failure all the time. If you're always failing, you're always depressed. You're always anxious. We see that everywhere. Work has come to define every part of our lives. Our relationship to God, our relationship to others, and our relationship to work itself is poisoned by a dysfunctional approach to achievement. Not that work is intrinsically bad. No, work is intrinsically good, but the fourth command is given to us to break the chains of slavery to achievement, because an achievement mentality is corrupting all of our relationships. So now that we know why we need this commandment so desperately, let's look back at our text and try to understand how our achievement mentality is actually hurting us, how it's hurting our relationships. Look back with me at verse 8. God says to Israel, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." This is the actual commandment in verse 8. And then verses 9 through 11 are explanations of the command. So a few things we need to understand before we really know what this commandment is. And then we can understand why it's actually important to obey and why it's hard to obey. So let's start with the word Sabbath. What does that word mean? Well, Israel was actually already introduced to this concept of Sabbath a few weeks before, a few chapters back in chapter 16. Right after Israel crossed the Red Sea, they were complaining about their food situation, and God provided manna and quail for them to eat. And he gave them an instruction. He said in chapter 16, "Gather twice as much on Saturday, the sixth day of the week, so that you don't have to gather anything on the seventh day, because the seventh day is a rest." And those people who tried to gather food on the seventh day were disappointed. The food had gone bad. It wasn't going to last for them. He said in chapter 16, "Tomorrow is a solemn day of rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside and keep it till the morning." So did you catch? That was the definition of Sabbath. It was in that verse. Did you catch it? It means a solemn rest. That's what a Sabbath is. It's a solemn rest. A holy rest to the Lord, he said. So basically the word Sabbath means stop, cease, rest. And so by the time Israel gets to Mount Sinai a few weeks later, they've already been practicing this. They've already had a few chances to rest on Sundays. They've had a little bit of practice. Which is why God tells them in chapter 20, verse 8, you need to remember the Sabbath, right? Remember this. They've already been practicing. You have to remember it. And this isn't a brand new idea for them. They just have to keep practicing. But there's more to the law than just remembering to rest. Look at the rest of verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day. Okay, they got that. To keep it holy. So this is not rest for rest's sake. This is a different kind of rest. This is a Sabbath rest. It's a kind of holy rest. It's different from the 8 hours of sleep that you get on the other 6 nights of the week. It's different than the exhausted collapse on the couch after you finally get the kids tucked in and that reach for the remote. It's different than that kind of rest. It's something holy, something uncommon. Remember earlier in Exodus, we were defining something holy as something that's consecrated, right? Something that is set apart for the Lord. It's something that is given to Him. It belongs to Him. It's reserved for Him. That's what this is. It's a day that's reserved for God. Now, I want to camp out here for a second because this is the first thing that our achievement mentality tries to corrupt. It tries to corrupt work. What I mean by that is most of us try to rest for the sake of work. We go into our day off and we're thinking, I have to recuperate this day or else I won't be able to work the next day. See how it's oriented towards work? Or we think this was such an exhausting week, I have to rest to recover from that work week. Oriented towards work. There's nothing about God in there. It's all about work. And so that's what this achievement mentality does to us. It ruins our rest. Even when we do have it, because it's orienting everything towards work. Work that is, a rest that is only meant to recuperate or to prepare us for more work is not a holy rest. That's survival. That's all that is. It's survival. That's slavery. One of the biggest culprits to our society being on the verge of mental breakdown, and to us as individuals being on the verge of mental breakdowns or burnouts, or at least always on the fringes of exhaustion, is that we celebrate fake Sabbaths. fake Sabbaths. What do I mean by a fake Sabbath? A fake Sabbath is your day off in which you do a ton of work for which you do not get paid. You do a week's worth of laundry, a week's worth of dishes, you do all your yard work, you do everything that you didn't have time to do for the administration of your home and your children's preparation for their week, right? You do it all on one day and you call it holy. That's not holy. That's common. That's survival. That's a fake Sabbath. Verse 9. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. Okay, this is a part of the command that those of us who tend towards laziness need to hear. We forget that you're commanded to work for 6 days. We conveniently leave that part off. We're like, oh, we got to rest. Yeah, you rest one day, not every day, right? We work 6 days. And that's why the intention was that you put all that work that you do on your fake Sabbath, you put that in the rest of the 6 days so that you can actually rest, so you can have a holy day set apart for God. A quick side note, oftentimes laziness is born out of a desire not to fail. It's still an achievement mentality. It's like, I don't want to work because I'll probably do a bad job and then I'll be a bad person. But don't miss this. It's good to work for 6 days. So most of us have a 5-day work week. That leaves a 6th day to get all of the administration of your home done. The yard work, the laundry, all that stuff, right? Husbands, help your wives on that day. That's not a day off for you if it's not a day off for her. I think it's hilarious. So I follow a lot of work-life balance gurus on social media because they're funny to me. They're really funny to me. They're always like posting online about how they only work 3 hours a day and they're like taking selfies in Fiji and like, just finished my work day, it's 3 hours, right? And they have this kind of condescending tone, like, why can't you all do this? And I'm always like, there's two problems I have with that. It's like, you're being dishonest, first of all, because your posting is your work. You're making money off of that post. You're working right now. I know you're in a nice place, but it feels dishonest to me. I feel like that's problematic. It's also hard for me to understand because if it's actually true that they're only working 3 hours a day, a couple days a week, they're not working 6 days as God commands. Our achievement mentality has poisoned our relationship with work. It has made work a slave master that we orient our whole lives around. Or we give in to laziness, throwing up our hands because we can't achieve it anyways. We can't create ourselves. We can't fulfill our potential. We can't hit our quota. Why bother? But our achievement mentality doesn't just poison our relationship to work. It also corrupts our relationships with each other, with other people. Look at verse 10. But the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. You or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. Why does God expand the command to include our families and our male or female servants? That would be like the modern equivalent of your employees, right? Our animals, even our guests. Perhaps it's because of the human tendency to exploit others. That's a tendency we have. Now, admittedly, not a lot of us have the opportunity to exploit others on the Sabbath, but this was a big temptation for them. It was a big temptation for them. See, in Exodus chapter 20, when God was giving this command to Israel at Sinai, there was actually not really any way that they could exploit each other. Just like think about it for a second. A few weeks before, they were all slaves. There was no social hierarchy established in Israel yet at this point, right? They had some elders, they had Moses in charge, but there's nobody rich. Everybody who has anything received it from the Egyptians as they left Egypt, and they're going to give it all back to God to build the tabernacle. There's no rich person, there's no poor person, there's no social hierarchy. They can't exploit anybody. No one's getting rich for the next 40 years. They're wandering around the wilderness for a while. So when God gives this command here in Exodus 20, he gives his reason for this command. He grounds it in something outside of their context. He grounds it in creation. Look at verse 11. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Here God is saying, follow my example. Follow my example. I worked for 6 days and then I rested. I Sabbathed. I made a special day. Follow my example. It wasn't because I was exhausted. It wasn't because I needed to recuperate for another week. No, I rested to enjoy my creation. It was very good. I wanted to spend time with the people that I had made, the people who bore my image. That's what God was saying. So follow my example. God didn't orient his world around work. He oriented his world around enjoyment. Isn't that crazy? He oriented the whole world around enjoyment, the Sabbath, a day that was holy. The Sabbath was a fixed thing in the week. All the other days were about getting to the Sabbath, thinking about the Sabbath, preparing for the Sabbath, enjoying the Sabbath. So in verse 11, when God tells Israel that they need to stop working in order to follow his example, God's example had implications on relationships. It has implications on relationships. So what do you do on the Sabbath? You rest with people. You enjoy people on the Sabbath. This is why God says, don't make your kids work, your servants work, your animals work while you're resting. Because you need to enjoy them. You can't enjoy your kids if they're out mowing the lawn. Sabbath is a community affair. It's a family event. It brings other people in and it enjoys them. That's what God did on the first Sabbath. And then interestingly, in Deuteronomy chapter 5, when God reiterates these 10 commandments to Israel, he has a really different approach. He gives a really different reason as to why they should Sabbath on the seventh day. Because you see, the Deuteronomy passage is at the other end of the 40 years in the wilderness. They're done wandering. It's the next generation. They're about to go into the land that God has given them, and they're about to have opportunities for exploitation. Some of them will become very wealthy. Some of them will fulfill their potential. Some of them are going into a land of opportunity, and others are going into a land of poverty. And so God says in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 15, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. You shall not do any work, you or your children or your servants, for you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. I think that's amazing, that God changes the reason for another generation because of what they're going to struggle with. In the first generation, he said, don't make your people work because I want you to enjoy them as I enjoy them. And with the second generation, he says, don't make your people work because I rescued you. Don't enslave people because you were once slave. You should never want anyone ever again to orient their lives around work. You should never want anyone ever again being a slave working 365 days a year. That's slavery, Israel. You can't do that to your people. I think we've seen this in real life. When work takes over, when achievement takes over, our relationships with those close to us become strained, right? Any workaholics in how does that go for your family? We either love our work so much because that's where we find fulfillment, right? That's where we get appreciated. People think hey, you're good at this, but maybe at home you don't get appreciated because you're not good at it. So you get value and appreciation and you're productive at work. Or maybe your home life is just so painful, you just want to escape it for as long as possible. You're breaking your relationships. Or they're already broken and you're looking to work to do something that it cannot do. Or alternatively, sometimes our achievement mentality prevents us from working hard. We might feel like failures at work, and so we long to escape from our work and go home and be slothful and passive, which inevitably leads to tension in your family and with your friends and your coworkers. You see how an orientation of your whole life around work corrupts your human relationships? If you make life about work, it starts to poison your human relationships. Forgetting to Sabbath not only poisons your relationships towards work itself, but also to other people. But most devastatingly, it sabotages your relationship with God. An achievement mentality sabotages your relationship with God. Look at verse 10 again. The second half of verse 10. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yahweh, your God. The word Sabbath, of course, means rest. It means stopping. So in this command, the Lord is telling us why. He's telling us why to stop. It's not about resting from work so you can recharge, so you can re-engage work. It's not about recovering and recuperating from work so you can get up and make it another week. That would make Sabbath all about work. What God is saying is it's a Sabbath to me. It's a Sabbath to me. It's a rest for God. It's a rest for the sake of your relationship with God. That's what the Sabbath is for. It's a rest for the sake of your relationship with God. Forgetting to Sabbath is the key to forgetting God. Neglecting the Sabbath is the beginning of neglecting God. This will play out in Israel's history, if you know the story. They will, almost as soon as they enter the promised land, under the leadership of Joshua, within a few generations, they will forget God. They will exploit one another. They will exploit themselves. They will exploit their land. In the name of achievement, in the name of striving to build a kingdom, they will forget God. They will forget to Sabbath. And once they forget to Sabbath, God introduces slavery again to remind them of their need to be rescued, of their need for Him. The same thing happens to us, church. When we neglect our rest with God, we soon become slaves to production, slaves to building our own little kingdoms, and we begin exploiting ourselves and others day in, day out, week in, week out. And it's not long before we have once again submitted to a yoke of slavery to our achievement mentality. Now you might respond, well, Jason, I've got a weekend built into every week, so this isn't possible for me. I'm not forgetting the Sabbath. That may be true, but is your weekend oriented towards work, or is it oriented towards God? Is life on the weekend about catching up on binge-worthy shows and doing all the laundry and dishes? Has Sunday become about sports and meal prep, grocery shopping and yard work? Those are all good things, but we can do them on Saturday. If we hold Sundays as holy and we reserve them as sacred, we will work hard the other 6 days and reorient our week around resting our tired souls with God. When we fail to Sabbath, we're on a trajectory of forgetting God. When we forget God, we tend to strive to find meaning and purpose and value in something other than God. Did you catch that? When we forget about God, we tend to look for our significance, our value, our meaning, our worth. Love, really, is what everybody wants. We look for that anywhere else. And we so often look for it in work. I remember in high school, I took a worldview class. And we tried to predict, this was the assignment, we tried to predict as a class what the outcomes of postmodernism would be in the next generation, our generation. So we actually accurately and could safely predict, even as 15-year-old sophomores, that the priorities and the perspectives of our world were leading us to a post-truth society. We weren't rocket scientists or anything like that. That was just pretty obvious that that's where this was all leading. A post-truth society where everything is untethered from objective truth. And that would lead us to a post-truth society, a world full of people who have their own contradictory truths, and truth is in the eye of the beholder. You see that everywhere right now. That's a natural outcome of postmodernism. But what we failed to predict was how being untethered from truth as a society as a whole would lead us just floating around looking for something firm to stand on, something to grasp onto, something that will give us value and meaning and love and significance. There wasn't anything firm. There isn't anything firm out in the world that we can stand on. There's nothing solid. We feel like people underwater in an undertow being tossed around, desperately searching for something to latch ourselves to, something firm to prove to ourselves and to others that I actually have significance, that I mean something. Humanity has been stuck in this cycle for thousands of years. We all crave purpose. We all crave significance. And so when we forget God, we have to create that significance. We have to achieve it with something that we make, that we demonstrate, that we prove. And if we don't, we feel like we're not loved and not worthy, not valued, not significant. We have to create it in ourselves. And this always comes by tirelessly working, by extreme effort, or by giving up completely and surrendering to laziness. And God looks down at our pitiable state as humans, trapped in this treadmill of striving to achieve our worth, the hamster wheel of effort to earn our value. Meanwhile, God is saying, hey, I already love you. You're significant to me. You have incredible worth to me. And while human hearts loved him too little to give him a day, he sent Jesus to the earth to break the chains of our self-enslavement, to deliver us from our self-exploitation. Jesus came and said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you" what? Rest. I will give you rest, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He's saying, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of trying to prove that you're worthy? Aren't you tired of trying to earn love? Aren't you weary of trying to produce something that will make you valuable? Aren't you heavily burdened with striving to achieve significance? Aren't you exhausted by failure and the moral quality of being bad that we assign to it? Join the club. Come to Jesus. He offers you rest. He offers you love. He says, I don't care about your failures. I've already dealt with your sin. I paid for those a long time ago. You're clean. Come to me. Spend the day with me, with my Father, with the Spirit. Rest with me and enjoy me because I enjoy you. That's what he's saying. So now I want to show you some of the many ways that we can remember the Sabbath in the 21st century. In one sense, this command is the easiest to obey because it's a call to do nothing. It should be the easiest to obey. But in another sense, it's calling you to completely reorient your entire life by reorienting your week around a single day. So in that sense, it might be the hardest command to obey. It's a day that's consecrated to God. You feel like I have to give up a seventh of my time in my entire life. That is a massive sacrifice. I'd like you to think of it as an investment, as rescue, actually, as redemption. First, strive to make Sunday your Sabbath, if you can. None of this is legalistic, right? None of this is legalistic. That would be doing what the Pharisees did, and that just ruins the Sabbath. It ruins the whole point, right? But why Sunday? Didn't the command say the seventh day of the week? Sunday is the first day of the week. Why do Christians and why have we historically celebrated the Sabbath on the first day of the week instead of the seventh? Well, because Jesus rose from the dead on Sunday morning, he completely reoriented our week. As Christians, we devote the first day as a weekly reminder that we live out our lives in light of the resurrection that happened, but looking forward to the next Sunday as a reminder that there will be another resurrection that's coming, namely ours. We orient our week around resurrection. We orient our rest, our security, the love that we know that we have from God because of the resurrection. That's why we Sabbath on Sundays. Hebrews 4 talks about how our lives should be aimed at entering that eternal rest that God started when he finished making the world. God started resting on that day, and we strive to enter that rest by faith. We live out the resurrection of the past, looking forward to the future rest that's coming, that we will join God in that rest at our resurrection. And so when you interpret Exodus 20 in light of Hebrews 4, it's clear that our lives should be oriented around Sabbath, not work. Resurrection Day. But what if you work on Sundays? That's okay. That's okay. Set aside a different day. But strive to reserve that day, to make that day holy, to make it sacred, to protect it with your life, to protect it for the sake of your soul and your relationships, for the sake of your relationship with God. Protect that day. Second, make your Sabbath a ritual. And I don't mean a ritual in the sense of mere tradition, doing something for the sake of outward appearances. I know ritual has a bad connotation. What I mean by ritual is that it's regular. It's consistent. It's basically the same every single week. It's a rhythm of life. It's a stabilizing part of your week that is predictable. Work and rest find their significance in each other. Otherwise, life becomes a nauseating beat with one note over and over and over again. Our lives need rhythm. They need some melody. Work and rest, fasting and feasting. We need balance, the balance of contrast and the complement of change with the consistency of recurrence, knowing the same thing is coming soon, on Sunday. Third, when you think about the word Sabbath, I want to give you some words to associate with Sabbath, just to help you in implementing this practice of Sabbath. Words like play. Play. If you could be a child again, what would you do if you were bored? It's probably a good indication of what you should do on a Sunday. I know that sounds so crazy. But is what we're doing right now working? Everyone finds different things enjoyable and restful, so you have to find what works for you. If it's cooking an incredible meal, do that. If it's gardening, do that. Find something that you love to do that you're just free to do. You don't have to achieve anything. There's no production as a result of it. You're not producing any fruit as a result of it. It's just play. It's just enjoyable. I'd also want you to associate the word Sabbath with the word waste. Waste. As in, the world would say, this is a complete waste of time. You have wasted away a seventh of your life. If the world is able to say that about your Sunday, you're on the right track. You're doing it well. It should be a day that is completely fruitless, that is totally unproductive, that is rebelling against the world's abusive call to achieve something that day. It's a great day for a nap. It's a great day to waste good food and drinks because you just over-prepared and you had an abundance of food ready for people to come over that you plan to enjoy. Too much food for your friends and your family, a day of abundance. It's a great day for boredom, a great day for contemplation. It's a great day to build a fire, to snuggle with your kids. Things that don't produce anything that you can see right now. A third word I'd love for you to associate with the word Sabbath is patience. Patience. Because usually completely reorienting your life takes time and practice. We've been trying to do this for 15 years. We have changed it so many times. We have wanted to quit because we weren't doing it right. We have to completely reorient everything once in a while. Learning to Sabbath is trial and error. You're going to hear me say these things, you're going to try these things, you're like, that's not going to work for our family. We have to do something different. Great, do that different thing. Do your family's version of it. Do your version of it. It's a steep learning curve, so you have to be patient with yourself and don't give up. Learning to be bored is really, really counterintuitive. It's really hard for adults to be bored. We don't like it. We haven't experienced it in decades. We don't know how to do it anymore. We're bad at being bored. But if you can stick with it, it will be the highlight of your week. It will be the highlight of your life. It will change your life. Here's a fourth word we should associate with Sabbath: prepare. I know I'm not the only one that has shown up to Sunday church completely exhausted. You've just wrestled a 2-year-old into an outfit that they don't want to wear, and you've forced a comb through so many tangles, and why do they even have this many tangles? How did they get those? You've screamed at everybody to get in the car, and you show up here already mad, already failed, you're already bad, and it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Man, what helps that though is to prepare on Saturday. Prepare on Saturday. It doesn't go perfect, but if you prepare on Saturday, you make Saturday fun, make the preparation for Sunday fun, right? Like if you tell your kids, hey, we're going to have a family movie night tonight, there's going to be popcorn and dessert. The catch is you have to shower and lay out your clothes for Sunday clothes that you agree to wear, that you promise to wear, or else. And you say, we will have a family movie night with popcorn and dessert if you lay out these clothes the night before. And then it's fun. If you have to bribe them with great snacks and good food, so hey, if you behave through church and you can make it through, we're going to have really unhealthy food after church. It's going to be awesome. Make it fun. Make it the best day of the week for your kids. Kids, this is where you can help your parents. You can make Sunday special by helping on Saturdays, by cleaning the house, by getting your clothes out, by showering, all the stuff you need to do before Sunday. And the kids, I also know it would be a push, but wouldn't Sundays be so much better if you didn't have any homework that night? What if you pushed to do your homework on Friday and Saturday so that you could really rest with your family on Sunday and enjoy your family, making it the best day of the week? And retired people, I know you're not working in a vocational sense. What would it look like for you to make Sundays holy? To make them different than the other 6 days of the week? You don't have to work anymore. That's great. That's amazing. But what would it take to make Sundays a holy day? That's something uncommon from the other 6. How can you make Sundays special? How can you make Sundays encourage your soul? How can you find rituals and routines that you only do on that day of the week to make it the day that you look forward to the most? And here's the last suggested word associated with Sabbath, and it's the hardest word: offline. What if Sabbath was offline? The rest of your life is completely online. The emails can wait. The news can wait. Everything attached to the internet can wait till Monday. Every single thing. This is the hardest one. Sabbath is not a day for learning. It's not a day to be productive. It's not a day for accumulating data. We're not machines. What if you were offline 1 day a week? It's a day for communing with God, for being still and enjoying Him and enjoying others. You can't do that if you're constantly stimulating your mind with things that are pulling you back into being productive or learning or accumulating information. Now, if you're doing all of this and it's not enjoyable, change it. Just change it. This isn't legalistic. This isn't going to work for everybody. You all have to just find out what works for you. I do think you should be ritualistic about it, but you shouldn't be legalistic about it. If you're trying to rest and it's imposing more burdens on you, you're doing it wrong. The lesson from Hebrews 4 is orient your life around God's rest, not work. And the power to obey these commands, to rest, is in your ability to rest secure that God loves you. You don't have to achieve anything with Him. It's already been achieved. You have no value to produce with Him, no worth of which you must become worthy. He's already done it. And so, I guess my question for you, church, is, do you want to join a revolution? A slave revolt? A slave revolt against a culture of achievement? Do you want to cast off a society that wears busyness like a badge of honor? A people of worry and hurry? Do you want to have a weekly pilgrimage back into Eden? to spend time with God in the cool of the day? Do you want to get your hands dirty and play with the garden soil that he gave you to enjoy? Or do you want to keep making bricks for Pharaoh out of clay? Do you want to break the chains of being measured by successes and failures? Do you want to destroy the despondency of always having to produce yet never being able to produce enough? Are you weary of living to be useful? Are you tired of striving to be fruitful? Are you sick of building a reputation of output? Are you over with busy being your daily greeting? Don't you want to feast with God and other freed slaves? Don't you want to play again? Don't you miss being still and knowing that he is God? Don't you miss the quiet play of childhood? Don't you want to get out of that prison? Don't you want a day of consecration and communion? Well, then there's good news. Christ has thrown open that door for you. You don't have to break out of the cell. You only have to walk out and then walk in, to exit and then enter his rest. Bring your heavy-laden soul to Christ. Leave the lie that says you're only loved if you grind, that says you're only worthy if you hustle. Christ says, put an end to the madness and the exploitation. He will quiet your soul. You can be still with him. Make Sundays sacred. Make Sundays for you and for those you love, and especially for God. Church, remember the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath. Let's pray. God, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. There are millions of people in this valley who are seeking to prove that they're worthy of love, and you are sitting on your throne loving them the whole time before they did anything good or bad. Lord, would we be examples of the freedom that comes from rest with you? Would you fill us with joy? Would people see a difference in our city on Sundays? Not because we're fake Christians who are hypocritical and act differently on Sundays, but because we're so enthralled with the joy of being with you and your people. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.